Well, welcome to another episode of the More Than a Game podcast. And joining me on the podcast today is Sydney Kings legend and NBL commentator Brad Rosen. Brad spent 5 seasons with the Kings back in the 90s before stepping into the world of commentary. And he's had a tremendous career, and we're looking forward to hearing all about that today. He's the recent recipient of the King of Ring of Honor for the Sydney Kings, and great acknowledgement, a great achievement for his time spent with the club. He had the nickname Lightning. He's a former assistant coach with the Kings as well. We look forward to hearing his story today. Brad Rosen, welcome to the More Than a Game podcast.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here, mate. Really looking forward to it. Love the show. Watched a few of them, so it's great.
That's good to hear, mate. Good to hear it's getting out there. The message is out there, so that's good to hear. But before we start, I just need to congratulate you once again formally for your achievement for the Ring of Honor with the Sydney Kings. No doubt a great honour for you receiving that award earlier this year.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty amazing to be able, just to be nominated with the guys that were on there was fantastic. And then to get a call from Paul Smith to say you've won it, and some of the words he said to me was pretty special, I'll be honest. And things that he said he didn't have to, and it certainly gave me chills. I understand I'm not the greatest player to ever put on a singlet for the Kings. I know that,
You were pretty good though, mate.
Oh, thank you. But I'll go for my teammate, Matty Nielsen, So I played with some great players, Matty Nielsen, Bruce Bolden, Shane Hill, you name them, Dean Utoff, Mark Dalton, Damien Keogh. Like, I was so lucky to be in an era of those type of caliber players, Leon Trimmingham, etc. So to be able to sort of get that Ring of Honor was special. And you don't realize it when you're younger, but people go, to have your family involved, but to be able to walk on that court, and the Kings are doing so well, there was 14,000 people there. So it was really nice. And to have the kids come on with me and my wife obviously was hugely special. And I don't think, I haven't got it on at the moment, but I don't think I've taken the ring off since I got it.
Yeah, no doubt. I bet, mate. That was incredible. And you spent 5 seasons there. We're going to dive into your story, but it just shows the contribution that you did have, even though you were only there for a short time, really. So,
I actually remember going to their first game in 1987 as a spectator, thinking I'd love to do this one day. So to me, it's the Kings have always been, I was a floor wiper for, before the Kings started, they were the Supersonics. So I used to wipe the floor for them. So I think I've done every single role that's possible in that club.
Yeah. Oh, mate, we look forward to diving into it and hearing more about your story there, but it's part of your blood. But before we do that, I just want to dive into a few things, get your thoughts on a few things, particularly the Australian Boomers who announced their 15-man squad for the upcoming World Cup.
The Australian NBA Boomers. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I know. It's phenomenal. It just goes to show the depth we have in the country at the moment. We're blessed with talent, and it's really incredible to see.
The incredible thing is who's going to miss out.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you.
The talent is unbelievable. Yeah.
Who do you think misses out, but also what excites you most about that team?
Well, the potential. And when I say potential, I shouldn't probably say that considering we're a bronze medalist, but potential now and potential going forward. It's been widely spoken about that at the end of the 2000 games, when you had your Andrew Gaze, Vla Hobbs, Brad Keys retire, Shane Hill played in the 2004 Athens, I'm pretty sure, so he didn't retire then. But to have everyone of that caliber walk out, it hurt the club. It hurt the Boomers, I shouldn't say club, sorry. So that was really difficult. There's no doubt about that. And then you look at guys now, like, there was Bogut and then, obviously Paddy Mills and Joe Ingles and that caliber, Brockhoff, all of those guys that were part of that. You start to think to yourself, oh God, what's going to happen when these guys are done? And now you just look at it and you look at Giddy and you look at Cooks and Green and Thibault. I'm massive on Thibault. So, Dante, all these players that you're just like, wow, we're going to be good. We're going to be fine when these guys leave. We've got so many players that's coming through. One you'd know from the Sharks is obviously Tyrese Proctor. I'm very close with their family, so look out for him. He's tearing it up at Duke and what he's going to do. So it's just such exciting times going forward. So we're in good hands. I think it's fine. Look, I know they've named it to a 15. I do have my opinion. I'm pretty sure who, in my opinion, who's going to make it. But geez, don't want to go online and say it, but I will. But yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, again, I think we're a good chance of winning.
Yeah, absolutely.
The USA don't look all that strong. It's interesting the players they've put together, but we look forward to it. But the amazing thing is the caliber of the NBL players as well that have missed out, and there's quite a few of those. And we'll step into the NBL preseason as well because it is in full swing, and it's been incredible to see the player movement, new coaches coming in. It's just exciting. I'm looking forward to it, as no doubt you are. But what team has excited you, or what team's recruitment has impressed you the most in the off season?
Well, it's twofold, and people will shoot me here if I say the Sydney Kings. So I'll go straight to the one that's the real exciting one, and that's United. What they've been able to do is unbelievable. Yeah. They've always been that club up there, but by their accounts, and I'm love Dean Vickerman, love the way he coaches. There's no question by their accounts they didn't perform where they wanted to last year, because the only way they perform is winning it. It's like, everyone say about the Wildcats, you don't win it, you failed, So for me, I don't think, they had a great year for their standards, and what they've been able to do. JAL coming back, although I know he's injured, but he'll come back into that fold. They've picked up Ian Clark. They've picked up some really nice pieces, and to put that around CJ Delhi's back and stuff like that, they're really exciting to me. I then go to the complete other end. I think what the Sydney Kings have been able to do by losing their head coach and 5 of their starters, not just 5 players, 5 starters, and be able to recruit what they've done. Amazing. Just absolutely amazing to be able to do that. Their bench is good. They've got a great core. Yeah. What Glover did in the grand final series was outstanding. Sean Bruce has been great, but the one that excites me the most, and yes, I played with his dad, and yes, he was used to be in the back of my car in a child's seat when I was 1996 and he was born, because I'd pick up Bruce in training. Can't wait to see Jonah play. I know he's been out for 3 years. This guy is good 6'10", 6'11", can shoot the three, run the lanes, block shots. He can do it all. And to me, there is no doubt that, his ceiling is so high. I just can't wait to see what he's like after 3 years out. Tui is a great pickup. They're bringing back the old MVP. So, really exciting times across the board. Perth's another interesting one. Adelaide, CJ's recruit, and Brisbane have done what they've had to do. Cairns losing Pinder hurts. That really hurts. Obviously, DJ Hogg, they lose. He goes to the Kings. So, yes, and it's going to be some interesting times, but don't underestimate those teams. We know that Illawarra's bolstered up again, so I'm looking forward to seeing them. So it's going to be a ripper season.
It is, mate. And then we'll start end of September. So looking forward to that.
Come on, hurry up.
I reckon, bring it on. Got to get through the World Cup first, mate. So
that's true. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. That's going to be great.
Right. Absolutely. So just on those, like you mentioned, playing in the 90s, receiving your acknowledgement or the Ring of Honor in front of 14,000 people, like basketball in this country is at an all-time high. The caliber of players we've got, the NBL is going great. Can you compare the eras when you played? And they talk about the 90s being that's when I started watching, and it was so big and sold out crowds in the entertainment centre. Where do you think basketball sits now compared to back then?
If you would have asked me that 2 years ago, and forget COVID when I say this, I'm just saying basketball in a general. If you would have said that 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said, man, that basketball's getting back to where it was. And, thank God for Larry Kelserman and his team, because we wouldn't have had a league. It's pretty obvious, right? So you look at what they've done, and I've been part of the commentary now for 6-7 seasons, and, I've seen it go up and up and up, and I get a lot of stats given to me in the sense that, participation's up, crowd numbers are up, etc. And you think they're getting back there, because the 90s was just unbelievable. In Sydney, you go places, you were seen, you were known, everything's going on. But I think now there's a very big argument to say what's better. I don't know. I just sit here and go, both are damn good. I've been part of this now, this season or season gone. 18,000 people for the last 2 games at the Sydney Kings, sold out in Melbourne, sold out in Adelaide, Perth, always 13 plus. Every venue you go to, Cairns, can't get a seat. Tasmania sold out for 50 years or whatever it is.
That's right.
You just look at it, New Zealand, what they were able to do last comp, and there's another one who's going to be good, because, massive William McDowell White fan. But I look across the board and I just think to myself, is it better than what it was? Yeah. Is it worse than what it was? No. Was back then is great. Yeah. Like I don't think it's right in a way to compare one to the other. I think you can just say they were both outstanding. Right now, it's at its absolute peak that is where it's ever been. And I think it will just continue to grow. We're just so blessed to have a fantastic team in the NBL. And I'm not saying that as a commentator. I'm saying that because of what they've been able to do.
Absolutely, mate. Well said. It's exciting. I look forward to it kicking off once again. But as you've been saying, the Kings are part of your blood. It's in your blood. And your family, but come from a basketball family. But I mean, the Rosen name's synonymous with basketball in this country. But where did it all start for you guys? Where did the basketball or the passion for basketball begin?
Yeah, it's funny, like growing up, my brother, I've got two brothers. My oldest brother actually was a runner, and he actually qualified for the 1988 Seoul Olympics with running. Wow. So he was Australia's fastest 100-meter runner back then. But he blew his knee out and he couldn't go, and then had hamstring problems and so on. So he never actually got to that pinnacle, if you call it. But I mean, he ran with and against the best ever.
Wow.
And so it was sort of always in our blood. My dad was, tennis player, won under Davis Cup, but never, at the highest of levels or something. Mum was always sporty. And then basketball was not, I played cricket and tennis and every sport possible when I was younger. And then I remember at school, I was like, there was nothing to do in the summer. I'll just try this basketball thing. So then it came, my older brother was playing, that's my middle brother. And he was quite playing at the Sydney Comets. And then back then, now there's like 200 kids that try out. Back then, we needed extra guy. Can you do this, Brad?
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, I'll come play. So you got asked to play because there wasn't enough players. So for me, it's just like, and then I just loved it. And then in '85 is when the Comets, or back then, sorry, the Supersonics, was bought out by the organisation, which was headed by Mike Robleski, but there was Andrew Lazarus, who was the president of the Sydney Supersonics. So I used to go and watch them play, and now we're talking guys like, Derek Polt, Tiny Pinder, Wayne Krecklow, all these guys that a lot of people may or may not know, but they were my heroes back then. Sure. And so I got to watch them play, and then it was like, I want to be this guy. Like, I want to do that. And it's an amazing story. I remember when I was in under 16s, I was really short, which really hasn't changed, but anyway, I was under 16s, and one of the guys at the end of training was sitting there, and he says to me, have you ever thought of being a coxswain in a rowing boat? The guy at the front that yells out row or more or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, you don't think I can play basketball? That's really nice of you. So that just made me even get more, just wanted to knock a brick wall down and get there. But yeah, so it sort of started when I was young, and then it was life. And then Michael Jordan era hit, everything happened, so then it was like, yeah, that's me.
Absolutely. Excuse me while I'm trying to find this article, but I was reading the article from Matt McQuaid when you won the achievement. And I just love the quote that he had in here. I'll just quickly bring it up. Here it is. He wrote that, Brad Lightning Rosen, which was your nickname, is one of those stories that Hollywood loves, a kid with a dream who made that dream into reality. I love that. And it just shows, again, and we've had people like BJ Carter on the podcast, and I think of players like him that just have that dream of making it, do all they can to make it, and then to be able to put on the Sydney Kings jersey. Can you remember the moment that you got the debut call up?
Oh yeah,
put the single on for the first time.
Oh, like it was yesterday, mate. So it was amazing. I remember I'd been training with the Kings for a while, and it was different back then. Like for me, there was 10 players that were contracted. There was no, development players. There was none of that, right? It was like, hey, Brad, do you want to come down to training? Because we need extra training, mate. Yeah, sure, mate, I'll come down. And then you sort of get into the swing of things. And then I was playing ABA at that level and had some big games in that. And I was chosen to be in the All-Star 5 for the whole ABA. And then, you start to think, hang on, can I do this? And then I remember in 94, there was the World Championships on, and Hubbard and Keogh both made that, and they were Kings players, so they went. But then there was a tournament down in Canberra, and Bob's like, do you want to come? Well, yeah, you kidding me? So I never ever wore, just old school how it was, I would never wear a Kings shirt, Kings tracksuit, Kings anything, because I didn't want to wear it because I wasn't part of the team. That was the first weekend I ever wore it. Right. And that was fun. And then I remember in 95, unfortunately, Phil Smythe, great man, loved him, the general, he popped his shoulder out, and for the last 8 games of the season, that was when I signed my first contract. And I remember standing in the locker room, and I'm next to big bad Dean Uthoff, God bless him, I love Sparky. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like got up, and I put the singlet on, and I'm looking in the mirror at the entertainment center, and he could see, and he was seeing, and he just came in and put his arm around me, like, I know, that. And I just remember, it still gives me a lump in my throat now. And I just remember thinking, wow, I've made a dream come true. But as soon as that happened, it's like, right now, how can I continue this? But still, and then Damien Keogh was playing that year, and he looked at me, he says, Brad, I just want to give you one thing. He said, when you run out, there's heaps of TV cables. Don't trip over them. I was like, Damien, don't do that to me, mate. Exactly. So it was good fun. It was good fun.
Yeah. Wow, what a story. If there's any kids listening, obviously I was a kid once, and my dream was to be professional. Didn't quite make it. That's okay. I've said that in the podcast before, but just to have one game at that level would have been incredible. But for you, what did it take to get to that level? Obviously, a lot of hard work and the dedication. But what's one tip you'd give the younger viewers or younger players who had that dream of one day making it?
Don't die wondering.
Yeah, it's good.
That's what I used. Just don't die wondering. I can tell you, I had so many coaches that said no. I mean, even Bobby Turner, I think at one stage was like, I just think he's a bit short. You know what I mean? So, for me, then I knew, well, it's got to be speed. If I don't have my speed, man, I'm just another number, and I'm not going to make it. And I think there was a lot more talent than me that didn't make it. Growing up through the ranks, 16s, 18s, tried out for state teams, got cut. Was never that guy. Didn't start in some teams, thinking, well, mate, I'm not even starting in this team. How am I going to go next? No, didn't matter. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to keep going. And then just something clicked. And a lot of I owe that to Cliff Martin, who was my ABA coach. The Sydney Comets, we won a national title in 92. And we had guys like Mark Ridlin and guys like Jerry Everett playing for us, and we won the title. 93, we missed out on that one. But then in 94, the Sydney Kings took over the Comets ABA. Now it was called CBA back then, and they became the Sky, which is Sydney Kings Youth, and that was the best thing that happened to me. And I was able to start play. Had some big games, and then you start to think to yourself, man, I can do this. So my advice would be, don't die wondering. I don't want to say don't listen to anyone, because that's not the right advice. But what I mean is there's always outside noise that you might not be able to, do this, and you're too small, you're too high, you're not big enough, you're not small. All of these things. Nah. There's always room for something. Always room for something. Just be that guy.
That's good, mate. Good advice. Let's jump to the on-court stuff now, or what happened on the court, because, again, as you said, incredible players throughout the 90s. And, it's funny you mentioned the Sydney Sky. It brings back a bit of nostalgia. Played halftime at the Sydney Sky match back in the day. So
nice.
Yeah, it goes back a long way now. But on the court, again, blessed with so many great players, but couldn't quite get that elusive title back then in the 90s with all the great players that the Kings did have. Even got the nickname the Violet Crumbles.
But harsh.
It was. But what do you put that down to in that time? Like, great coaches, great players. Was it a mentality thing? Just the yips, as they call it, or whatever. But what was
it's probably look, personally, probably everything. I don't think it's one thing. Coaches were great, players were great. Sometimes there can be too many good players. You know what I mean? It's and you need role players, but then you had role players, and there wasn't the great players. So there is a lot that goes in. Now I can say this, not back then. Being the fact that I was able to be part of 2 championships under when Brian Gorshin was the coach and I was the assistant. There, you make your own luck, but there's also luck. There can be injuries, I mean, there was times there the Kings, they look very good, but then like a Mark Dalton goes down injured or something like that. And it's like, man, that's huge. Or, Ken McCleary couldn't finish the season, or Dwayne McLean, or whatever it was. So, and, in the years we were in, you have injuries and it goes wrong. So there's so much that has to go right for it to win. But we didn't have the mix of what was needed. You can add egos into that. There always is. And it's difficult.
Absolutely. We mentioned some of those players, guys like Shane Heal, Damien Keogh, Bruce Bolden, list goes on. The players you played with. Who was the standout in terms of ability and also the best team?
Matt Nelson was probably like, I played with him in the Sky. So we go back to, you know, many, many years.
Yeah.
Great mate. And it was always like, man, I mean, this kid made the Kings. I think he first was 16 or something. You know what I mean? It was like, well,
Wow.
he's a freak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is he going to do?
Mm.
And you just saw him do things in games, and you're like, oh my god. I do remember one guy that played that he only played like 6 or 7 games was Steven Jackson. Now he ended up going on to the NBA.
Yes, remember.
He came in the '98 season, and we had 8 imports go through the team that season. He was number one. He was 1, 2, 3, or 4. I don't know. And I remember, you know, he did some dunks at training where we were like, oh my God, you'd never seen. Nowadays, that happens every training. But, you know, back then it was like, oh my God, this guy. So as sheer athleticism, I don't know if anyone even competed. And I'm talking Leon as well. You know, Leon Trinningham, I saw some amazing stuff.
Yes.
You know, for a sheer dagger, and I will tear your heart out, is obviously Hammer, Shane Hill. I don't care where I am, what it is, I'm going. You know what I mean? Like, as a fierce competitor, second to none, you know, and I was the backup point guard, so I got to guard him every day at training. Well, I shouldn't call guard him, I ran after him every day at training. But he was another level too. So but then, you know, like Bruce Bolton, the absolute most professional, without a doubt. Always, you know, always ready to go, do what's necessary to get right for the games. Mario Donaldson was another one. He used to go through trainings that he wouldn't miss a training.
Wow.
One of the most talented guys I've ever seen, you know, just tear things up, was Aaron Trahere. You know, he came from Perth, and it was like, you know, he's the poor thing, the next Shane Hill, because Shane made the NBA then.
That's right.
And the pressure on him was not, but mate, he could shoot the shot out of it, you know. But we had some amazing players, and I could go on Dean Utoff, you know, the size with Mark Dalton. You know, he's one of those guys, put your arm around you, I got you, mate, come with me, you know. So I was blessed to play with so many great players, many great players.
Absolutely. One of the greatest imports, for me, the greatest Kings import I loved watching was James Smith. Did you get a chance to play with him at all? Or?
No, he was the year after me. Now that was athleticism.
Yes.
Man, he could dunk, that boy.
Yeah.
So I think he was the year after me or something, or the year after that or something. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, amazing player. But I did see that you retired in after the 98-99 season.
Yep.
And after that, looks like the career went cold. So what happened that you didn't kick on?
Yeah, no, it's I had a shoulder reconstruction. And I actually, like, Brett Brown took over that year, right? So it was 98-99. And I was captain of the team back then. And I actually dislocated my shoulder in 96, and I'd been carrying that shoulder, if you call it. And it was fine while I was playing, but it kept slipping out. So I'd have to get injections and things, and it was just painful. And it was like one time too many. It was like, right, I need surgery. So I had the surgery, and after surgery, then, you know, Brett Brown offered me a 2-year deal. And it was like, I don't know if the body can keep doing this. And I look back now, I should have gone on. Like, come on, mate, it's a shoulder, get on with it. But just back then, it was just like, that was my second shoulder surgery, you know, ankles, knees, playing. And it was just like, I don't think this is going to be for me. I look back now and think I retired too early. Probably my biggest regret was not playing under Brian Goorjian. I was offered a contract in 97 to go play for the Magic. Gorge rang me, and I thought it was a joke first off, got to be honest with you. And, you know, he's on the phone to me, you know, come down, we got Jason Smith and Steve Tremick. We want you. Come on, Rosen, come on. So that was probably my biggest regret. Not regretting that I didn't leave the Kings, because I loved and feel honoured that I played a one club. I do love that. But my biggest regret was not playing under him, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, you moved into the world of coaching after that.
I
didn't realise that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So coaching under him, you know, you often hear about the great coach of the years, and not just, well, obviously in basketball, he's the GOAT, you have to say, but when you look at guys like Wayne Bennett in the NRL, Kevin Sheedy, AFL, these guys you hear about, and they're just incredible coaches. But when you talk to people that were either coached by them or know them intimately, you get a bit of a picture as to why they are so good. So from your point of view, what made Gorge so good in terms of getting his team up and being so successful in this country?
I can't tell you what he's taught me in life. And, you know, I have an electrical air conditioning and building business. And what he taught me in those 2 years has helped me in life, not just basketball, because the simple answer is he's a people's person. He knows how to motivate, how to get people going. And you know, what I saw him do was second to none. Now, I was lucky enough. I was the assistant coach of the Sydney Kings, but then I was also the head coach of the ABA program, which is now NBL 1, right?
Yes. Yep.
So we were in the Waratah League. And back then I had guys, Dave Barlow, Graham Dan, Steve Whitehead, Chris Storber, Rod Proctor, who we spoke about, Tyrese. Yes. So we went and I coached for 4 seasons. And while I was coaching, I was assistant. So obviously coaching during the winter and then assistant coaching the Kings through the summer. Yep. And what Gorge was able to teach me, I won 4 championships in a row with that ABA team, went to nationals, no imports, got beaten by Sean Redditch 48 points in a final. Bugger. And, to be able to do that with no imports was like, that team was phenomenal. And because I learned so much off Gorge. There is no question. So the biggest thing, and to get back to answering the question, is what he does off the court. So I remember, speaking to Gorge, and he's like, 80-90% of your work's done before the ball's thrown in the air. Just get it. It's coffees, it's teas, it's drinking, it's this, it's doing that. Every guy understands his role, what knows to go on. And that's what I think the strength of him was. And that's why you look at all his teams, it doesn't matter if it's player 1 or player 10 or 12, they all come on, they all play hard, they all do exactly what he needs to do. And everyone always used to say, he always, why do juniors play so well? They knew their role. He handpicked them. They were good people off the court. No egos, any egos, get out the door, mate. Don't need you. You worry about your own backyard, right? So that's what he taught me, and that's taken me in my business and my life of what I was able to do, no question.
Yeah, just touching on those people skills that he did have, because translating that into your business, but also more broadly, if there is managers, CEOs listening, I guess that's a really important skill to try and learn if you don't know it, because I think that's how you get the best out of people. Just it shows you value them. So can you speak a bit about the importance of people skills?
100%. I mean, you look at the best way I can explain that. You look and I'll use people we know. Like you look at Wayne Bennett. You look at all the players, what they say about him. I want to go with Wayne. Look at it like what was it? Darius Boyd from memory. Wherever Wayne went, he went. You know what I mean? Like he was in Broncos, he went there. Then he went to St. George, then he went there. Then he went to Newcastle and back to Brisbane. He just kept following him. And you look at guys like Wendell Saylor and Langer, all these guys. He's their dad. You know what I mean? Like they absolutely, that's like Gorge. That's like Gorge. That is what CEOs do. A job of a CEO, and this is what I say in my business here, is my job is to make sure you get what you need. What do you need? Now, I'll tell you what I want you to do. You tell me what you need to make that happen. And I have meetings with all my managers, and it's like, all right, what do you need? Like, and my answer is I would expect that if I say I need you to do A, B, and C, then you do it.
Yes.
But my response is, if you can't do it, then we need to have that conversation. So you put that to a basketball analogy, right? I expect you to be able to be on the split line, get down, talk to the defensive player. And if the guy drives baseline, or you need to be there and help, and you take the charge and you're not in the square, and take it square on the chest, and that bang. That's what I expect. Now, if you can't do that, what do we need? Do we need yoga? Do we need fitness? Do we need all of those things? And all of that is done. And we're not even talking about basketball at the moment. We're just talking what we do. And that's the type of thing where, as an electrician, right, I need you to have every tool that you possibly can have, because if we're in that thing, I need this. Right. So how are we going to do that? So, and that's the type of thing. And that's what Gorge taught me. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story, and I babble on, I always do as commentator. Talk too much. Shut up, Rosen. But
that's why he's so good, mate. That's why he's so good.
I remember there was one time, and I'm playing. I'm coaching, and as a player, never nervous, never nervous. As a coach, oh my God, was I anxious. Coach, I just don't know what it is. It was don't get nervous commentating. I mean, you get a little bit like, make sure you don't say something you shouldn't, because it's always live, but never nervous, all of that. As a coach, I was shocking, right? And I remember one time I rang Gorge before tip off, like this is like let's say it's 7:30 tip off. I'm ringing him at 10 to 7. Man, I'm so nervous, mate. I'm so nervous. I don't know why this game. And he's like, Rosen, you know how he goes, and he's so good. And he's like, you know, there's two types of coaches. There's your Lindsay Gazers that can sit there and, you know, relax. And then there's your Gaussians. You're a Gaussian, mate. Don't worry about it. And he said, I've got the solution for you. He said, what's that? There isn't one. Throw the ball in the air. That's it, mate. Just throw the ball in the air. That'll stop the nerves. And it does, you know, so you're so worried. And, you know, now I turn that around. And if you put that in a work environment, a CEO environment, if you're going into a big meeting or you're going into a big talk in front of 1,000 people, if you're really anxious, you're really nervous, I look at that and go, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Awesome.
If I'm not nervous, am I not prepared?
Yeah.
So even sometimes with the big commentary, you know, 18,000 people at a game, like, God, I'm just going to do an interview. It's going to be, oh, good, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. So that's the thing that, you know, it was able to teach me.
That's awesome, mate. Very cool. Let's go back just to those 2 years coaching with the Kings and being a part of that incredible time, because it really was. Did you get an inkling early on in the pre-season that there was something special brewing? Because it was Gorge's first season in charge. I remember being at the Sharks, and, you know, shout out to the Southern Sharks. They're in the NBL 1 grand final coming up.
Yeah, good luck. They were great. Yeah,
they were
doing well.
I remember finishing training, and the Kings were training, and I've confessed on this podcast, I looked at the team, and there was quite a few people. Like, it was a pretty new team, and I looked at it, I was like, I don't think they're going to go very well this season, but obviously, went so well. So, did you get any early on? Yep. Yeah.
No, what was really interesting was it was Brett Brown's team, because he built the team, right? And then he went on to San Antonio.
Yeah.
And then Gorge came in with the exact same team, except brought Brad Sheridan up. Right. That was the only change of what was designated. The imports were handpicked by Brett, and everything was done. And the only one he brought in was Brad Sheridan. Now, Brad Sheridan, a flat-out shooter, great defender, plays really well, but not Andrew Gaze coming in, right? So no disrespect to Rowdy, Brad Sheridan, but he wasn't, you know, like, wasn't bringing in an Australian boomer that had been for 4 Olympics. And then, you know, just to watch him go about his business was unbelievable. To be able to do that, you know, he got the best out of every player. I love that. You know, there'd be times where he might say, right, this player, you're on the bike today. You're not going to train if you know, they've had, you know, legs are getting heavy towards the end of the season. So he just knew every player, and every player knew what they were. So no, I had no inkling. And back then as well, like, sounds awful, winning wasn't part of what we were used to in Sydney. You know, you're like, oh, we'll win games and you'll lose games, but it was never like, in Gorge's mind, mate, I don't plan a holiday until what's the last day of the grand final? I'm the day after that.
Wow.
Right? Where, you know, the Sydney mentality was a little bit like, well, I hope I make playoffs and that finishes then. Do you know what I mean? Like, in that mentality, mate, we're going deep. We are, you know, there's nothing else. So I just watched him do what he did. And then probably, you know, I think after 10 games, I think we're 9-1 or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Hang on a sec. This has got, and then Chris Williams, God bless him, he's passed on now, but Chris Williams was like, holy God, like, for someone that hasn't got that natural shot, he's a freak.
Yeah.
Matt Nielsen's now in the 5 spot doing what he's doing. Shane's banging from the outside. Brad Sheridan's doing it. My goodness. Yeah, we can do something here, you know, and then it just went from there.
Yeah, no, it was incredible, Steve. Then obviously did the 3-peat. But is there any desire to get back into coaching from your point of view? Or
no, it's funny. I mean, look, you never say never. You know, like I do remember Gorge saying back then, you know, you got a decision to make. Are you going to go down the coaching path? Because God bless him, he thought that I could be an NBL coach. Don't know if I could have, but, you know, he just said that. He said, you've got the making of that, but you've got a decision to make, because, you know, in the background, I'm running a business. You can't do both. You can't do both. If you want to do this, then I would have had to go where it may be needed. You know, you're not just going to walk into the head coach of a Sydney Kings role. So it could have been, you know, overseas, wherever it may be. And back then it was just that situation where, you know, I had a business. It was flourishing, you know, working with my brother. My wife had moved up from Melbourne, started a family, and it was just a decision. We were like, no, we're going to stay here. And, you know, the coaching thing wears you out. It really does. Even like to me, it didn't matter whether I was NBL 1 or ABA. It didn't make a difference to me. It was still whether I'd be head coach or, you know, you're still putting in the same time, video sessions, doing it all. So it was something. So to answer the question, you would never say never, but it's always an itch you like to scratch.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, you do a tremendous job with the NBL commentary, I must say. One of the best there, I reckon. So
Oh, thanks, mate.
you're back into it for the new season, no doubt.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, we've had some chats and really looking forward to it. Absolutely love doing the commentary. Everyone I work with is outstanding. I mean, predominantly I work with Joe Healy in Sydney and Matty Russell in Wollongong. Matty and I have been pretty much best friends since we started. Have a great relationship, and it's just like, you feel like when you're there, you're just sitting on a couch talking to your mates. So it's really good, and the production is second to none. Like, they care about you. They're talking to you. They ring you. What's going on? What do you want to do? How are we going to do this? Let's make this the best we can. And, a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. It's phenomenal. And that's, I sit here and go, I understand why it's successful.
Absolutely, mate. Well, you've been very good with your time. I did say half an hour and I'll let you go, but obviously you can see Brad on ESPN and through the NBL, I guess, over the course of the season. But Brad Rosen, thanks for coming on, mate, and sharing your story. Really appreciate you joining the More Than a Game podcast.
Nah, my pleasure, mate. Go the Kings.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, mate.